Most people don't lose power loudly. They lose it quietly, every day, without noticing. Every reply you didn't need to send, every explanation no one asked for, every emotional reaction that gave someone access to you. By the time most men realize what's happening, respect is already gone. And the worst part is this: no one took it from you. You gave it away. In the next few minutes, you're going to understand why silence has always been feared more than confrontation, and why the moment you stop reacting, people begin to lose control over you. Stay with me, because once you see this pattern, you'll never respond the same way again. There is a quiet reason people lose control of their lives. It isn't lack of intelligence. It isn't lack of ambition. It's something far more subtle. They react too much. Every response feels harmless in the moment, but slowly, almost invisibly, it drains authority. Power doesn't disappear all at once. It leaks. Most people treat attention like politeness. They believe responding is maturity. They believe explaining is fairness. That belief is expensive. Attention is not neutral. It is value. When you respond instantly, you signal urgency. When you explain repeatedly, you signal insecurity. When you react emotionally, you reveal leverage. Powerful people learn this early. Not every message deserves a reply. Not every provocation deserves engagement. Not every misunderstanding deserves correction, because your attention is limited. And once you understand that, you stop spending it emotionally and start using it strategically. The moment you slow your responses, people feel it. The moment you stop explaining, the dynamic shifts. Why reaction lowers status? Watch any interaction carefully. The person who reacts first gives away information. The person who fills silence exposes need. The person who rushes to explain loses position. Reaction is a confession. It says, I'm affected. I need this resolved. I need you to understand me. Silence says something else. It says, I'm not moved. I'm not threatened. I'm not operating emotionally. This is why calm people feel intimidating. Not because they are aggressive, but because they are controlled. Silence is a signal. Silence is not emptiness, it is not confusion, and it is never accidental. Silence is information. When you don't respond, people don't assume you didn't notice. They assume something far more unsettling. They assume you noticed and decided they weren't worth engaging. That single assumption changes the entire power dynamic. You didn't raise your voice, you didn't argue, you didn't defend yourself, yet something landed. Silence communicates judgment without explanation, and judgment without explanation is impossible to argue with. Words invite negotiation. Silence closes the door. When you speak, people can challenge you. When you stay quiet, they are left alone with their own interpretation. And most people fear their own interpretation more than any insult you could deliver. This is why silence unsettles people. Not because it is aggressive, but because it is final. Silence tells others, I am not emotionally available to this. I am not playing this game. I am operating at a different level of priority. What happens in their mind? The human brain is built for feedback. From childhood, we are conditioned to expect response, approval, correction, engagement. When that response disappears, the mind panics. Not loudly, quietly. When you ignore someone, their brain begins searching for meaning. It replays conversations. It re-examines tone. It looks for mistakes that may not exist. You become a question with no answer, and unanswered questions grow. Neurologically, social rejection activates the same regions of the brain as physical pain. This isn't metaphor, it's biology. The discomfort doesn't resolve itself. It loops. They feel tension in the chest, restlessness in the body, mental noise they can't turn off. And here is the key detail. You are not doing anything. You are not attacking. You are not humiliating. You are not escalating. You are simply not present. And the absence becomes louder than confrontation ever could. The mind cannot tolerate being dismissed. It needs closure. Silence denies closure. That is why it works. Irrelevance is power. Most people think power looks like revenge. It doesn't. Revenge keeps you emotionally connected to what should already be beneath you. Anger keeps the other person relevant. Arguments keep them important. Explanations keep them involved. True power removes relevance. The strongest punishment is not harm. It is insignificance. When someone realizes they no longer exist in your mental space, panic replaces confidence. They lose leverage. They lose influence. They lose meaning. And meaning is what people fight hardest to preserve. Silence doesn't attack. It erases. You don't need to prove superiority. You don't need to announce detachment. You simply stop feeding the connection. And when attention is removed, the structure collapses. Irrelevance is cold, but it is clean. Strategic withdrawal. There is a critical difference between disappearing and withdrawing. Disappearing is fear. Withdrawal is choice. Strategic withdrawal means you are still present, but inaccessible. You are calm, but unreachable. Aware, but disengaged. Most people exhaust themselves by being constantly available, always replying, always explaining, always reacting, and in doing so, they destroy their own value. Availability signals abundance. Scarcity signals importance. When you are always reachable, you are replaceable. When you are selectively absent, you become rare. Strategic withdrawal is not avoidance. It is conservation. You conserve energy. You conserve attention. You conserve authority. And people feel that shift immediately. Who deserves your silence? Not everyone deserves access to you. Some people provoke to feel powerful. Some drain to feel important. Some observe reactions to gain leverage. Responding to them elevates them. Ignoring them shrinks them. Enemies lose power when denied acknowledgement. Critics lose relevance when denied response. Energy drainers lose access when denied availability. Silence is not weakness. It is filtration. You decide who enters your mental space. You decide who receives energy. You decide who matters. And most people don't. Emotional discipline. Understanding silence is easy. Executing it is brutal. Emotion demands expression. Ego demands defense. You will feel the urge to respond, to explain, to correct. That urge is the battlefield. Each time you pause instead of reacting, you gain control. Each time you choose restraint, you remove leverage from others. This is not emotional suppression, it is emotional mastery. You allow the feeling to pass without acting on it, and over time, this rewires you. Discipline compounds. Social chess. Every interaction is positioning. Most people move too fast. They reveal too much. They defend too early. The one who waits controls tempo. When you don't react, others move instead. They explain, they chase, they adjust, and without speaking, you shape the board. Silence forces others to reveal themselves. That is strategic advantage. The cost of approval. Approval is the most expensive addiction. When your emotional state depends on others' opinions, you become predictable. Praise controls you. Criticism destabilizes you. You are no longer sovereign. True power comes from internal validation. When approval is unnecessary, manipulation becomes impossible, and most people never reach this point. Becoming unreadable. Approximately 10 minutes at slow pacing. The most powerful people are difficult to read, not because they are deceptive, not because they are cold, but because they do not leak. They do not broadcast emotion. They do not explain their inner world. They do not reveal intention before results appear. They are not hostile. They are contained. Most people misunderstand this. They think being unreadable means being distant, silent, or emotionally numb. It doesn't. Being unreadable means your inner state is not publicly accessible. Other people cannot easily tell what you're thinking, what you're planning, or how much they matter to you, and that uncertainty changes how they treat you. Most people are easy to read. Their face reacts before their mind does. Their tone shifts when they feel insecure. Their explanations spill out the moment they feel misunderstood. They announce discomfort. They announce excitement. They announce need. And once your emotional state is visible, it becomes usable. Readable people are manageable people. Unreadable people are not. When someone cannot read you, their mind starts working harder. They search for signals. They analyze words, pauses, posture. They begin to guess. And when people guess, they project. They project their fears, their expectations, their insecurities. You are no longer reacting to them. They are reacting to themselves. That is quiet power. Human beings do not respect what they fully understand. They respect what they cannot easily predict. The person who explains everything feels safe, but ordinary. The person who withholds unnecessary information feels serious. Authority grows in the space between words. Being unreadable is not about silence alone. It is about timing. You speak when it matters. You engage when it serves a purpose. You withhold when engagement would only lower your position. You do not fill silence to relieve discomfort. You do not explain to be liked. You do not react to release tension. You allow tension to exist, and tension creates gravity. Most people fear being misunderstood, so they over-explain. They believe clarity will protect them, but over-explanation weakens authority. Every unnecessary explanation signals doubt. Every emotional clarification reveals sensitivity. Unreadable people deny others that leverage. Stillness matters as much as silence. Your face does not rush to react. Your voice does not rise to defend. Your posture does not shift when challenged. You remain steady, and steadiness communicates something powerful. I am not destabilized by this. People instinctively test emotional volatility. When they sense calm containment, they hesitate. Unreadable people are difficult to manipulate. Manipulation requires emotional hooks, predictable reactions, clear insecurities. When your reactions are minimal, Manipulation fails. Praise doesn't inflate you. Criticism doesn't move you. Provocation doesn't work. And when people can't move you, they stop trying. Becoming unreadable also changes how you relate to yourself. You stop narrating your life externally. You stop seeking constant understanding. You stop needing approval to feel stable. Your direction becomes internal. This is where real confidence forms. Not loud confidence, not performative confidence, quiet certainty. Unreadability acts as a filter. Those who demand access reveal themselves. Those who lack patience expose their entitlement. Those who need constant feedback fade away. You don't push people out. You simply stop leaking energy. You also learn something freeing. You don't need to be understood by everyone, only by the right people. Everyone else can guess, and guessing keeps them at a distance. This is why silence protects mystery, and mystery commands respect. Not because people admire mystery, but because they are cautious around it. Caution creates boundaries. Boundaries create authority. Being unreadable is not about disappearing. It is about containment. You are present. You are aware. You are deliberate, but you are not exposed. Once you master this, people treat you differently without knowing why. They listen more closely. They choose words carefully. They hesitate before crossing lines. Not because you demanded respect, but because unreadable people are difficult to control, and what cannot be controlled must be respected. This is what it means to become unreadable. Not hidden, not distant, but so internally grounded that nothing escapes unless you allow it. Untouchable. This is the final transformation. Not a moment, not a realization, a state. You don't arrive here suddenly. You grow into it quietly, one reaction at a time that you no longer give. At this stage, something fundamental changes. You stop reacting automatically, not because you're suppressing emotion, but because emotion no longer commands you. You stop explaining reflexively, not because you are arrogant, but because you no longer feel the need to justify your existence. You stop giving energy to noise, because you finally understand how expensive energy really is. Nothing dramatic happens on the outside, but internally, everything rearranges. People notice before they can explain it. They sense a shift. Your words carry more weight, not because you say more, but because you say less. Your presence feels firmer. Your absence feels heavier. You haven't changed your posture. You haven't changed your tone. You've changed what you respond to, and that changes how people treat you. When you become untouchable, you stop trying to manage impressions. You are no longer concerned with how you are perceived in every moment. You don't rush to clarify misunderstandings. You don't chase approval. You don't correct every false assumption. Some misunderstandings are harmless. Some are useful. You let them exist because your sense of self no longer depends on constant confirmation. This is where most people never reach. They remain emotionally available to everyone, accessible to every opinion, reactive to every provocation, and because of that, they are always reachable. Always interruptible, always influenceable. Untouchable people are not. Being untouchable does not mean you feel nothing. It means feelings no longer dictate behavior. You still notice disrespect. You still recognize manipulation. You still feel pressure, but you no longer rush to relieve it through reaction. You let pressure sit, and pressure, when contained, becomes strength. At this level, you choose engagement instead of being pulled into it. You decide when to speak, when to stay silent, when to walk away, and most importantly, when something is no longer worth your attention. Attention becomes selective, and selective attention is power. People who once tested boundaries stop testing, not because you warned them, but because they sensed resistance without confrontation. They felt that emotional access was gone, and without access, control disappears. You begin to notice something else. The less you explain, the more people listen. The less you react, the more carefully others act around you. You don't demand respect. Respect adjusts itself. At this stage, criticism loses its sting. Praise loses its intoxicating effect. Neither moves you very far. You are no longer pulled upward by compliments or dragged downward by insults. You operate from an internal reference point, and that is rare. Untouchable people don't compete for attention. They don't argue with noise. They don't chase validation. They let relevance come to them, and relevance always follows stillness. This is not arrogance. Arrogance needs validation. Arrogance reacts when challenged. This is sovereignty. Sovereignty means you govern yourself. Your emotions are not public property. Your thoughts are not open access. Your energy is not freely available. You decide who enters. At this point, your life becomes quieter, not empty. Focused. Drama fades. noise loses volume, and in that quiet, clarity sharpens. You see people more clearly, situations more accurately, your own priorities more honestly. Untouchable does not mean invincible. It means unavailable to manipulation, unavailable to emotional exploitation, unavailable to constant disruption. You still engage with life, but on your terms. This is why the transformation is subtle. No announcement, no declaration, just a gradual withdrawal from what no longer deserves you. When you reach this point, something becomes obvious. Most conflicts were never necessary. Most explanations were never required. Most reactions were never worth the cost. You don't regret them, you outgrow them. This is the final state. You speak less, you observe more, you move deliberately. You no longer rush toward noise. Noise fades toward you and then disappears. If this way of thinking resonates with you, stay. This channel isn't about motivation. It isn't about hype. It's about clarity. And clarity changes how you move through the world, silently, deliberately, untouchable. The seal. And understand this clearly. Nothing you've learned here is loud. Nothing needs to be announced. Real power is quiet. Real control is invisible. From this point forward, you don't chase reactions. You don't explain yourself into exhaustion. You don't hand your attention to people who haven't earned it. You move differently now. You pause where others rush. You observe where others react. You withdraw where others beg to be seen. And most people will never understand why your presence feels heavier, why your silence feels final, or why they feel smaller when you stop engaging. They don't need to understand it. You do. If you've made it this far, it means something in you recognizes this truth, not as theory, but as instinct. This channel exists for those who are done being pulled by noise, done leaking energy, done living reactively. If that's you, stay. Not for motivation, not for comfort, but for clarity. Because once clarity takes root, nothing touches you the same way again. Silence stops being empty, distance stops being weakness, and attention becomes something you give, not something that's taken. This is not the end. This is the point where you stop reacting and start ruling your inner world, quietly, deliberately, untouchable.